Daf Ayin Gimel Amud Beis. We'll begin Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph, the Mishnah at the bottom. It's like the Mishnah. Chamesh Chatzeres Psuchas Zuluzu. If you have 5 Chatzeres that are open to each other, O Psuchas Lamavit, and they're also open to a Mavit. So you have 5 Chatzeres in a row. They have openings between them. They also have openings to the Mavit, to the street. So they're in a row, 5 chatzeres. They have doorways, windows. They're open to each other, so they have access to each other. They also independently open to the mavui. So if you have such a case, irvu b'chatzeros v'lo yishtatfu b'mavui, mutorim b'chatzeros v'asurim b'mavui. Now, since the chatzeros all open to each other, they have access to each other, you have the ability to make eruv chatzeros not only within the chatzer, but from chatzer to chatzer as well, which would allow carrying not only within a chatzer, but from chatzer to chatzer. Now, if they made an eruv with the chatzeros, that would allow them to carry from chatzer to chatzer. But if they did not make also a shlit of mevuos that join together and have joined together to make a shituf to be able to carry in the mavui, then the Mishnah says the mutar b'chatzeres v'asurin b'mavi. They're mutar in the chatzer, but they're also in the mavi. So the basic din is eruv chatzeres is the people. If it's in one chatzer, there are houses that are open to one courtyard. The members of the households, they each contribute the pas. It's placed into one house in the chatzer. If you have chatzeres from one chatzer to another, then the members of one chatzer, they contribute to the joint eruv, and the other members of the chatzer contribute, and the eruv is placed in one of the houses of the chatzer. For a shlit of mevuos, in order to carry from the chatzeres to the mavui, to the street, then they have to collect. It doesn't have to be pas, it could be wine. They collect and they join together, they all contribute, and it's placed into one secure area in one of the chatzeres that open to the mavui. As we learned previously, we have a basic machlokes between Reb Meir and the Chachamim. If you're mishtatif in the shita mevuos, you have to be ma'arv in the chatzeres. Do you need both shita mevuos and eruv chatzeres? Or if you have one, it serves for the other as well. Now it's important to keep in mind what we're talking about over here is not an eruv from one chatzer. An eruv within one chatzer would not replace the obligation to be mishtatif in the mavui. We're talking about if the chatzeros were all the chatzeros that open into the mavui, if the chatzeros were mishtatif together, were ma'arav together rather, does that relieve the obligation of being mishtatif in the mavui, or if the mishtatif in the mavui, does that relieve the obligation of being mishtatif, of being ma'arav the chatzeros together? So Reb Meir says you have to, notwithstanding the eruv, you have to make a shituf. Notwithstanding the shituf, you have to make an eruv. So the Mishnah says, the Reish and the Mishnah would seem to be indicating like Reb Meir. It says that if they eruv chatzeres v'lo yishtatfu b'mavui, they're only mutar b'chatzeres v'asurim b'mavui. That the eruv chatzeres does not relieve them from the obligation of the shituf mevuos. Then the Mishnah continues and says, if they made a shituf in the mavui, mutarim kan v'kan. If they made a shituf in the mavui, then they're mutar in the mavui, not only in the mavui, but in the chatzer. So this seems to be a stira to what we just said. This seems to say that if you made a shituf mevuos, you do not have to also make a eruv chatzer. So the Gemara will deal with this. Then the Mishnah continues and says, if there was both eruv chatzeres and shituf in the mavui, and one member of the chatzer forgot and did not join the eruv, mutarim kan v'kan. They're mutar in both places. Again, the Gemara will have to deal with this. Why are they mutar in both places if one of the participants forgot to join the eruv? And if you say that you need both shituf and eruv, Why is it mutter? We'll see in the Gemara. If one of the chatzers, one of the members of the movi, forgot and did not join the shituv, they're mutter b'chatzer, but they're also in the movi. Because the movi is to the chatzer, the relationship between the movi and the chatzer is like the chatzer to the bottom, just like the chatzer and the bottom. If they did not join in an eruv, it's also to carry from a house to the chatzer. Why is it also? The Chamim made an issur because it has the appearance of carrying from a reshus hayachid, a house is a reshus hayachid, to the chatzer, which is a common area, to reshus harabim. Even though they're both midaraisa reshuyas hayachid, but this is a house is a private area. The chatzer is a common area. It has the appearance of carrying from a reshus hayachid to a reshus harabim. So therefore, they require eruv chatzeres. Well, you might say that's only from a house to a chatzer, but a chatzer to a movi, you might say they both have the appearance of common areas, so it doesn't look like you're carrying from reshus hayachid to reshus harabim. No, so the Mishnah says no. If they forgot to join in, and they did not join in the shituv, they're mutar the chaz, but asur in the movi, you can't carry from the chatzer to the movi because shaham movi lachatzera is gechatzer labatim. As Rashi explains, that just like the movi to the chatzer, they have a din, and it looks like reshus hayachid to reshus harabim, and therefore you have to make an eruv. The chatzer, which is more private than the movi, also has that same appearance, and if one forgot to join in the shituv, it's also because also in the Rabbanan Asr it has that same appearance as carrying from reshus hayachid to reshus harabim, so it's also then the one who forgot, then they forgot to join in the shituv, then they're mutar b'chatzer, but they are asurim, but they are also in the movi. So the Gemara Mani, so the ratio the Mishnah said that if they forgot and if they have the loy nishtatu be'eruv b'chatzeres, loy nishtatu b'movi, they're mutar b'chatzeres, v'asurim b'movi. They're mutar in the chatzer, but they're also in the movi. So who's that going according to? Mani Rab Meir. That's Rab Meir here. Damer Bina and Eruv Bina and Shituv. That's going like the Shita Rab Meir that says you need both, and the fact that they did one is not sufficient. I am a mitzi also. The next case of the Mishnah says, "Im nishtatu b'movoi mutarm kan v'kan." It says that if they were mishtatif in the movoi, they're mutar in both places. Now that seems to imply that with the shitaf alone, even if there was no erev in the chatzeres, that mutarm kan v'kan asan l'rabbanon da'amri b'chadasagya. This would seem to be going like the shita of the rabbanon that says with one it's enough. You don't need both. Then therefore in nishtatu b'movoi, they're mutar in both places. Mora says halay kasha. What it means is im nishtatu nami kamar. What it means to say is im nishtatu nami kamar. If they also were mishtatif, not if they made eruv, and if they were also mishtatif, then they can carry in both places. So that's a double pasha. What's the chiddush? The Ritva says it's to reinforce the point that we're going according to Rab Meir, that if they need as well, you need both. It's making the point that you need eruv and shituv, and only then you can carry in both places. Frek the Gemara, it says eruv b'chatzeres v'shtatu b'movoi. If they did both eruv and shituv, v'shakach echem ibnei chatzer v'lo eruv, and one member of the chatzer forgot, one member of one of the chatzeres forgot, and he did not make the eruv, mutarim kan v'kan. They're mutar in both places. Well, how can they be mutar if one person did not join in the eruv? Echidami. Idoloi batal, if he was not mevatal as rishus, amay mutarim. How can it be mutar? You have one member that didn't join in the eruv. Must be elapshita de batal. Must be that he was mevatal his rishus. He relinquished his rights. Well, if that's the case, it says shakach echem ibnei movi v'lo nishtatu. If one of the members, one of the chatzeres of that open into the movi forgot and were not mishtativ, mutarim b'chatzeres v'asurim b'movoi, then they're mutar b'chatzer, but they are also in the movoi. Well, If you say the bottle, if you're talking in the case where the one who forgot was mevatel, he relinquished his rights. Why should there be also b'movi? Once he's mevatel rishos, then there's no one to answer. He's not there to answer. Perhaps you'll say, we're going to Romer, and perhaps you'll say Romer says you can be mevatel rishos and a, but you can't be mevatel rishos of a mavoi. We learn in the Brisa that it says in the Brisa that the people, the Chatzeres, the residents of the Movi are mutter because he relinquished, he was mevatel as rishus to Yudi Ramer. So you see clearly the Ramer holds there is bittul rishus b'Movi elapshita deloy botel. Must be that it was not mevatel. So if it was mad mevatel, umisef deloy botel, reishanam eloy botel. So the previous case is also where there's no bittul. Well, if there's no bittul and one of the members of the chassid forgot to be ma'arav in that previous case, then why should they be mutar kan v'kan? It's only that they would be mutar is if you say they don't have to be ma'arav because there was a shituf and therefore they don't need an eruv. So therefore that goes according to the sheets of the Rabbanan. So it'll come out Reisha v'Sefer Rab Meir and see also Rabbanan. And the middle case is the Rabbanan, which is of course very difficult to say. More answers? No. Kula Rab Mary. Really, I'll tell you that we're going in all the cases like Rab Meir. The time of my Rab Meir being an Eruv, being a shituf. We're going according to the sheet of Rab Meir that says you need an Eruv, you need a shituf, you need both. You can't have one to replace the other. But why is that reason? Is shaloi l'shakach teres eruv tinaikas? What's the reason that he says? Why is that so that you need both? Because, for instance, if you only had a shituf and you didn't have an eruv, the young children will say, well, we carried in the chotzer, we carried from the house of the chotzer, we carried in the chotzer, and there was no eruv. We carried from chotzer to chotzer, there was no eruv chatzeres. So in order to therefore dispel that notion, in order to reinforce to the children that no, you need eruv chatzeres, therefore we say, even if there's a shituf, you must also have an eruv. Really, Rab Meir says, Mikradin, once you have a shituf, if you have a shituf, they're all joined together, there's no reason that you need an eruv from the chatzeres. There's no reason to have that. But in order that shaloi l'shad, that people shouldn't forget, they shouldn't forget that there's an institution of an eruv chatzeres, he said you require both. But that's the whole reason. But here we're talking in a case that it's one member of a chasser that forgot to make the eruv. Everybody else made the eruv. It's only one person, since most of the residents did join in the eruv, people won't forget it. It won't be forgotten. And therefore we say in such a case, in that case we say it is sufficient to have the shituf will be sufficient. So therefore we say in that case, then we say that even though it's one member of the eruv forgot, the shituf in such a case will be sufficient and for the eruv, and therefore you can still carry. Now, as the Ritva points out, however, in the next case in the mission where it says but in the next case when it says that as far as the shituf of one of the chatzeros forgot and was not nishtatov in the movim, then the Mishnah says mutar b'chatzeres v'asurim b'movi, but it's also in the movi. In that case, we don't say since the majority were mishtatev and ma'arev, then we don't have a problem. That we don't have a problem shaloi l'shakach teres eruv. So it's like the Ritva. The reason is because over there we're dealing with an entire chotzer. The entire chotzer forgot. So therefore, the members of tinaikas of that chotzer, they see that the entire chotzer is carrying and there's no eruv, they might come to forget. In the previous case we're talking about is that it's only one member of a chotzer. All the other members of the chotzer, the members of the were ma'arav together, did join together. So in such a case, we're not concerned. But in the case where it's of the entire chotzer forgot, there we are concerned. So that is one version of the Mishnah. He did not learn that the chatzeres are open to each other. They're not open to each other. He says, Rav Kahana also, he says, Rav Kahana also said that he did not learn it, that it was open to each other. Both Rav Yehuda and Rav Kahana said the same thing in the name of Rav. Rav Kahana himself also did not learn that they're open to each other. So, Al Kolpanim, we see that the Zamaroim learn the case of the mission, they're open to the Mavoi, but not open to each other. They're not ma'arev together with each other. So the question is why? Why did these Amoraim not learn that they're open to each other? Because he answers, he holds a shituf has to be, he says that a shituf has to be is that each member of the chotzer takes something out from his chotzer through the opening into the movi. They all take it out from their chotzer to the movi, and then they take it and put it in and bring it in to the chotzer where the shituf is going to be placed. He says in order to be valid, it's not enough that you have the food in a chotzer. It has to be brought into the movi, and from the movi it has to be brought into the chotzer where it's going to be stored. Now if they're open one to each other, then they're not going out to the movi and in, they're just passing it to each other. So he says that's not a valid shituf. A shituf has to be brought into the movi and then into the chotzer where it's being stored. Is that so? Do you really have to be mishtatev in that manner? We learned in the Mishnah, if there was a balabais, he was a partner with his neighbors. They're all partners with wine. They do not have to make a shituf. So they went into a partnership, not for the purposes of a shituf. They went to the parlor, for instance, they invested, they contributed money, and they bought, one member bought a barrel of wine, which they all have ownership in. That's a shituf. So apparently you're not bringing the wine from into the movoi and back into the chatzeiros. When it says no, it says b'doichek hasam da'afkevaila. We're talking where that's was the case. Wine was taken out from the chatzer, brought into the movoi, not for the purpose of shita, for the purpose of a partnership, but it was nevertheless brought from the chatzer to the movoi, and then brought into one particular chatzer where it was stored on behalf of the entire partnership. So it says, how the Mishnah says, how are you mishtatev in a movoi? So you take a barrel of wine and you say this was for all the members of the chotzer. So apparently also you're not taking it from the chotzer to the movoi and back into the chotzer. Or it says, no, we are talking in such a case that it was taken out into from the chotzer to the movoi, and it was brought into the movie and then to the chotzer where it was stored. Maskevilo Rabba Bar Chanan, he asked the kasha, how can you say that? If one member just transferred ownership, he has pas basal, he has bread in a basket, and he transfers it ownership, a percentage, and ownership interest in it to the other members. So, are you going to tell me that it's not a valid shituf? Maybe you'll say in Chanami. No, we can't say that. We had members, a group, they were eating together on Erev Shabbos. And now Shabbos is coming, so now they want to make an Eruv. They're eating together at a table. The bread on the table, they can rely on that they're eating together. It's joint. They're eating it jointly together. They can rely on that for the Eruv. And some say they can rely from shituf. It's not a machlekes. If they're eating together in one of the houses, so an Eruv Chatzeiros has to be in a house. So that bread that they're eating together, they all have an interest in it. They're joined together with it. That bread in the house could be for Eruv Chatzeiros. And when they're eating together in a Chatzer, so that's not Eruv Chatzeiros. An Eruv for Eruv Chatzeiros has to be an Abayis. They're eating together in the Chatzer. Then they can rely on that for Shituf. So you see over here, we're not talking where it's brought in and comes into the movie and then brought back in, as Taisus explained. They're guests by one of the members. So that was his. He was the balabas. It belonged all to him before they started eating together, coming together to eat. And then he was mezakeh for them. So at the time it was brought in to the Chatzer, it only belonged to one, so it was not valid as a shitav at that point. And now they're coming together, they're eating together. He's mezakeh. He now gives them the rights. He's inviting them to eat, to partake from it, and they have the rights to it. So you see, it's not brought in and out of the mavli. So therefore, that's not a requirement for shituv. You do not have to be mishtatev in that manner. So if that's the case, the question comes back: why did they say that we're not talking when the chatzeres are open to each other? And the time of the Rav de Kasavar and mavli nita belachi v'kaira achu batu chatzeres psuchum l'saych. A mavli, you can be mater a mavli, it's open to the street with a lechi, a post, or a beam, a kaira. A chatzer needs a pas dalet. So a mavli, to be distinct from a chatzer, has to be distinct. It has to have batim, but chatzeres psuchum l'saych. It has to have, you have a side street, it has houses that are open to a chatzer, houses that are open to the chatzer, they open into the street. Now it has to have at least two batim open to two chatzeres. Now over here, if you say that they're all joined together in an eruv, if they're all open to each other and they're all merged together and joined into an eruv, they're all considered as one. So therefore, you don't have this characteristic of batim and chatzeres. They're not considered to be multiple chatzeres. If they made an eruv chatzeres, joining all the chatzeres together, they're considered to be as one chatzer. So therefore, the mavli doesn't have the characteristics, it doesn't have the required characteristic of batim v'chatzeros psuchum l'soich, and you can't be matched with halachi v'kaira. And therefore, we have to learn the case over here that they do not have access to each other. They're not all merged together, and they're just opened into now the movi without being ma'arav between each other. There's no air between each other. So therefore, the air of chatzeres that we're talking about in the Mishnah is not to be ma'arav from one chatzer to another chatzer. It's an air within the chatzer. It's an air within the chatzer. So if that is the case, therefore, as Taisa points out, we could be talking even according to the Rabbanan, because even according to the Rabbanan, the eruv within a chatzer does not satisfy the requirement of a shituf. According to the Rabbanan, it's only the eruv, if you're ma'arav, from chatzer to chatzer. And the way they're learning the case over here is we're not being ma'arav from chatzer to chatzer. We're talking about an eruv within a chatzer because the chatzeres are not open to each other.